Hello everyone, you're welcome to our science lesson for today. Okay, and we are going to be continuing with a study about shadow shapes. Shadow shapes. And for this lesson, we are going to need our learners' books, our science learners' books, and our activity books. Our science learners' books, activity books, your pencils, and erasers. Remember, you always need your pencil and erasers. Now, can you remember what we talked about shadows in our last science class? If you could, just give yourself a thumbs up. Now, I'm going to ask us two questions to refresh our minds or our brains about shadows. What is a shadow? What is a shadow? Okay, the second question is, when are shadows formed? When are shadows formed? So, shadows or a shadow is made when an object blocks light. A shadow is made when an object blocks light, like the example we can see here. Okay, so the man is blocking the light and a shadow is being formed behind him. Can you see that? So light travels in a straight line. So if it is blocked, there must be a shadow formed. Whenever you block a source of light, a shadow is always formed. Okay? Now, can we open to our learner's books, page 44? Learner's books, page 44. Learner's books, page 44. Shadow shapes. Shadow shapes. Now, in our learner's books, page 44, we are being told that shadows do not always look like the object that makes them. So shadows do not always look like the object that makes them. Okay? Shadows can be a different shape. So shadows can be a different shape. Also, shadows have no color. They are always dark. Shadows have no details like eyes or ears. Can you notice the shadow in the picture? Can you see any eyes or ears on the shadow? Okay, so note that shadows have no details like eyes, ears, or mouth, and they are always dark. Also, they produce a different shape from the original shape. Okay, so shadows do not always look like the object that makes them. Excellent. Now we are going to be looking at the objects, at different kinds of objects that make shadows, and also the objects that do not make shadows. The object must be opaque or translucent to make a shadow. What do you remember we said was an opaque or translucent object. Okay, they say the object must be opaque or translucent to make a shadow. Can you remember what an opaque object is? Okay, if you could remember, just give yourself a thumbs up. That's excellent. Now, opaque objects or an opaque object is an object that doesn't allow light to travel through it. Do you remember we did an experiment in class about that? And an example we used was our tables. We used the teacher's table and we also used the student tables. Can you remember? So, opaque objects do not allow light to travel through them. For example, we've said a table. We also have an apple. Can light travel through an apple? No. Okay. And what do you remember we said about translucent objects? Now, translucent objects are objects that allow some light to pass through them, okay, but we can see through them. We can see through translucent objects, but they allow light to pass through them. Can you think of an example? Okay, so an example of a translucent object is, for example, a balloon. Okay, can you think of other examples of translucent objects? Okay, that's excellent. And now, do you remember what we said about transparent objects? We said transparent objects will not make any shadows. Why won't they make any shadows? Because light passes through them, so they can't make any shadows. Okay, so this is a picture that shows us the different shadows formed in the morning, in the afternoon, and in the afternoon and at midnight or in the evening. Okay, so shadows have different shapes in the mornings, in the afternoons, and in the evenings. Okay, so early in the morning the sun is low in the sky and casts a long shadow. Can you see the reason why we have long shadows in the morning? Because the sun is low in the sky, so it produces long shadows. And at midday, the sun is above the tree and casts a short shadow. Because the sun is above the tree at midday, it casts or produces a short shadow. Okay. And in the evenings, excuse me, the sun is low in the sky and casts a long shadow. Okay. If an object is moved closer to the light source, the shadow gets bigger. And if the object is moved further away from the light source, the shadow gets smaller. Do you remember we did an experiment in class about this? We used the doll and a flashlight, and when we brought the doll closer to the flashlight, what happened? The shadow of the door became bigger. Can you remember? And when we took it further away from the flashlight or from the light source, what happened? the door became smaller. Okay. So now, can we open our activity books on page 24? Activity books, page 24. So we have an exercise to do on this page. And the instruction says, in this exercise, you will think about what shadows look like. Okay? And then draw the shadow of each shape. Now, I want you to look or to remember how shadows look like in the mornings because of where the sun is in the sky, how it looks like during the day, and how it looks like at midday because of the position of the sun. And from the look of the position of the sun in this activity, you can be able to know how these shadows should look like. Now I'm going to give you a little technique of how to draw these shadows nicely. Can you just turn your books upside down and then you draw? You're going to have very beautiful shadows from these shapes if you turn the book upside down. But if you draw like this, the way the book is, you might not get a very good shape. Okay, so it was a nice time again with you at class today. Take care of yourselves and keep safe. Bye.